To the Big East, top 5 matchup on Saturday. Number 4, Marquette at number 1, UConn. 3 p.m. tip-off Eastern time on Saturday. You can watch this one on Fox. UConn, a 5-point home favorite if you look at Haslametrics projections. Over-under of 146. Eli, you also have UConn in the top 2 here. You have number 2. You have Marquette considerably lower than the AP poll. You only have Marquette at number 13. So just your first thoughts here as we dig into this, what, in my opinion, is the game of the day on Saturday.
Absolutely. Top 5 matchup. And even though I have Marquette, I think outside of my top 10, to your point in my power ratings, which you could find over at thelines.com, they do have a somewhat of a matchup advantage in this game, which I'll get to. But first and foremost, UConn, I guarantee you, will be looking for revenge. I know they won the national title last year, but one of their last losses, because they haven't lost a lot recently, came in the Big East tournament semifinal to Marquette. Marquette not only winning the regular season title in the Big East, but also winning the Big East tournament last year. So keep that in mind. It may not seem like the biggest situational spot just because UConn has been rolling, longest active winning streak in college basketball. Granted, Marquette has been rolling as well. They won 8 straight. But you look at Marquette up front, and just overall, they lack size and they struggle in the rebounding department. They've been a little bit better in terms of cleaning up the defensive glass in Big East play when you look at their overall body of work versus against conference opponents. But I think it's still going to glare its ugly head in this game against Donovan Clingan and a pretty good offensive rebounding team for the Huskies overall. Now, on the flip side of that, where I mentioned Marquette could have an advantage, is UConn actually ranks below the Division I average when it comes to their transition defense, fast break points per game, in the 47th percentile. And that was not, like, if you look back at last year, athletically, UConn is maybe a little bit more athletic than they were last year, even though they had Andre Jackson, who was a really, really good defender in transition. But still, not a big concern for the Huskies, especially when you look back at their neutral site games, specifically the NCAA tournament. I know they dominated much of those games, but still, their transition defense held up in a big way. And Marquette ranks in the 96th percentile when it comes to percentage of fast break points per game, per CBB analytics. So that's where Marquette thrives. If UConn isn't dominating the offensive glass, and if Marquette can leak out in transition, I think this game could be a little bit closer than maybe the line and the market drives it up to. I have it closer to UConn -5.5, -6, just for context.
The opening line might be even bigger too, because I think Ken Baum has this at 7. I saw the same thing you did. If Marquette's going to keep this close, I think they need to turn UConn over and get in transition. Marquette's top 15 in the country, number 1 in the Big East in takeaway percentage. So, and UConn, their turnover issues have increased. I mean, they're still top 70 overall in the season, but they are bottom half of the Big East. The motivation angle is duly noted here. As crazy as that sounds for a defending national champion, they didn't win the Big East last year in the regular season or the tournament. So I think that is a motivation angle here to get a championship. And they are perfect at home this year. They're 13-0 at home. So it's almost, in my mind, required for Marquette to turn over UConn and get some easy buckets to keep this game close, in my opinion. Because if you look at the half court, the defensive edges here, I think, are for UConn in the half court big time, because Marquette is a big rim and 3 team. They're only 354th in mid-range field goal attempts. And UConn is 35th in defending the threes and 7th in near proximity field goal defense. So that's a really tough matchup in the half court for Marquette's offense. And when UConn has the ball, they also are a big rim and 3 team. They're outside the top 300 in mid-range field goal attempts. And Marquette's D only top 50 in near proximity field goal percentage defense and outside the top 150 in defending the 3. So I think UConn has some opportunities there. UConn's also a really, really good offensive rebounding team, top 20 in offensive rebounding percentage overall. So I think the 8-game winning streak comes to an end here for Marquette. I'm not sure I have the guts like you to potentially take Marquette in the points here. I think I'd probably either pass. I'm definitely going to pass pregame, I think. But there have been plenty of times this season where you get a great in-game number on UConn And I'm going to look for maybe an opportunity to do that here. If I can get UConn somehow, possession or less live, that'd be very attractive to me.
Yeah, and just going back to your point with the turnovers too, transition defense aside, just because when UConn turned the ball over last year, specifically in the tournament, which I mean, you could probably count, maybe not, because I said it a lot on our podcast last year, how concerned I was with UConn's turnover rate, and it never, ever reared its ugly head in the tournament, which I was shocked about, especially in the San Diego State game. So just because on paper, Marquette should theoretically be able to turn UConn over, it may not matter if UConn is dominating the offensive glass.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But game of the day for sure. Cannot wait to see it. Two teams that are going to be big factors come the brackets in March. So very excited for this one in the Big East.